Okay, let's dive into this explainer. If you've spent, any time at all looking up how to start a company online, you've probably noticed a trend. Most of the business advice out there, it's written by people who have literally never started one. It's just packed with disconnected fluff, generic hustle culture, and these overly complex frameworks that sound incredibly smart but honestly don't connect to anything real in the marketplace. So today, we're cutting through all of that noise. We are taking a concrete, anti-hype look at what actually happens when you start a business and exactly what you need to do to get through it. There's going to be no stock footage of people vigorously shaking hands in slow motion here, and definitely no motivational sunrises. We're sticking to the unsexy, realistic truth. Because we are skipping the fluff, here is our exact roadmap for today. We're going to replace the chaotic advice you're used to with 6 crystal clear steps. Mindset over fake motivation, solve problems, not passions, pick your business model, legal and financial basics, getting your first customers, and finally, complicated versus hard. All right, starting right off with section 1, mindset over fake motivation and how to survive the flatline.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that the very first thing most business courses try to sell you is motivation. But honestly, that is the completely wrong starting point. We've got to shift our focus entirely away from generic hustle culture because it perfectly contrasts the fantasy of entrepreneurship with the daily grind. Think about it. Motivation is really just how you feel on a good day. When the sun is shining, when you've just had an amazing cup of coffee and read some inspiring quote on social media, it is so incredibly easy to feel like a CEO. But reality? A real business is defined by what you do on a bad day. It's what happens when you're exhausted, when your biggest client unexpectedly backs out on a Tuesday afternoon, or when a product launch completely falls flat. Relying on a fleeting feeling of motivation is going to leave you stranded the exact moment things get difficult.
To truly understand this, we've got to look at your first year. This timeline reveals what we call the flat line, that quiet, highly unsexy gap between day 1 and actual revenue. Most businesses do not fail because the idea was inherently bad. They fail because the founder massively underestimated this exact timeline. The flatline exists for almost every legitimate business out there. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be super frustrating. But simply knowing it's coming, that's your absolute best defense. Getting your mindset right means you stop asking, will this work? And you start asking, can I sustain this long enough to find out? Moving on to section 2, solve problems, not passions. Let's talk about finding your actual idea. Once you've mentally prepared for the stamina you'll need, you have to figure out what you're actually going to build. And right here, we absolutely have to call out the most repeated, least useful piece of business advice in existence: follow your passion. You need to stop asking, what do I love doing? Because passions don't make businesses, problems do. Look, just because you absolutely love baking doesn't automatically mean people will pay you for it. But if busy parents will pay a premium for a reliable, last-minute, allergen-free birthday cake delivery, boom, that is a business problem. You need to focus entirely on asking, what do people already pay to solve? You're basically looking for the sweet spot between 3 things: a skill you possess, high demand in the market, and an audience you can actually reach. When you find a problem that people are already throwing money at just to make it go away, you found a viable idea. But an idea alone isn't enough, right? The golden rule of validation is getting exactly 10 strangers to pay you. Before you spend a single dollar building a product, designing a slick logo, or writing a single line of code, you need 10 people to genuinely pay for your idea. And here's the absolutely crucial caveat. These 10 people cannot, under any circumstances, be your friends or your family. They've got to be independent strangers who see enough value in your solution to hand over their hard-earned money. If you can get 10 strangers to pay you, you've got enough signal to move forward. If you can't, well, you need to adjust your idea before you waste any more time or capital.
Let's move to section 3 and see how this builds. Pick your business model, how money moves. Okay, so you have an idea and you have validation. Now we need to look at the specific mechanics of how money will actually flow from the customer's wallet into yours. We've got 4 main categories to look at here: product, service, access, which is like a subscription model, and affiliate. Let's walk through this systematically and just strip away the mystery. Take a service, for example, like freelance writing or consulting. You're directly trading your time for money. It pays the bills very quickly while you build, but it's capped, right? There are only so many hours in a day. Now compare that to a product like a software app or a physical good. It takes way longer to build, and the capital you need upfront is usually a lot higher. However, the ceiling on a product is virtually non-existent because it scales infinitely without taking proportionately more of your time. You really need to pick the model that fits your actual life situation right now, not just the one that sounds the coolest on a business podcast. Which brings us to section 4, legal and financial basics. Yep, the unsexy setup.
I know. Shifting to the administrative side makes basically everyone want to instinctively tune out. But I reassure you, this phase is incredibly quick, highly actionable, and it is nowhere near the daunting hurdle you probably think it is. And this brilliantly illustrates how straightforward it can be. Just 3 simple steps. First, register an LLC or your local equivalent. This immediately protects your personal assets if something goes sideways. Second, open a separate business bank account that exact same week. Third, track every single expense from day one using a simple spreadsheet or basic software. Why? Because running every transaction through a separate account and tracking it means your personal finances are totally shielded, your business actually looks credible, and your taxes become dramatically simpler at the end of the year.
Seriously, this entire setup? It's just a few hours of work, not weeks. Don't let paperwork become some disguised form of procrastination. Get it done once, get it done correctly, do not overcomplicate it, and move on to the actual work of building your business.
All right, section 5, getting your first customers through direct outreach. Now, this is where most early founders make their biggest mistakes, usually by prioritizing how they look over making actual sales. Let's separate fake progress from real progress. Fake progress is building a gorgeous website, setting up social media pages, or agonizing over exactly which shade of blue to use for a logo that literally 0 people are currently looking at. None of this matters if nobody is buying. A website proves nothing except that you know how to set up a website. Real progress, on the other hand, means direct outreach to people who actually need your offer. It means sending specific, clear pitches directly to potential clients. And yes, the gritty reality of directly DMing or emailing a prospect is awkward and it's uncomfortable. You are going to face rejection, for sure, but it is unequivocally the fastest way to get paid and prove that your market actually exists. Once you get those first early customers and start getting referrals, then and only then do you start thinking about marketing. And when you do, the golden rule is to pick one single channel and go deep for 6 solid months. Do not spread yourself thin trying to be everywhere on 5 different platforms at once. Find out where your specific customer spends their time and show up there consistently. 6 months of dedicated consistency on a single channel will beat scattered multi-channel inconsistency every single time. And as you build on that channel, you have to remember to measure what actually matters. It is so ridiculously easy to fall into the trap of thinking a social media like is progress. Publishing a post feels incredibly productive. It gives you that quick dopamine hit. But posting is not revenue. Vanity metrics do not pay the rent. What actually converts? Private conversations. It's the direct messages, the discovery calls, the back and forth emails that take a casual follower and turn them into a paying client. Always optimize for conversations. So the crucial point is coming up here in our final section, section 6, complicated versus hard. Time for a reality check. We've walked through this entire journey together, and now we need to reframe everything you've just learned. This right here is the ultimate profound truth of entrepreneurship. Complicated means you're lost. It means you just don't know what to do. But starting a business is not complicated anymore. You now have the exact roadmap. But it is incredibly, undeniably hard. Hard means knowing exactly what the steps are and having to wake up and execute them every single day, especially during that long, quiet flatline before it ever pays off. Let's summarize the core steps of this explainer into one final definitive checklist. Find a real problem that people actually pay to solve. Validate it cheaply with 10 strangers. Set up the legal and financial basics correctly in a few hours. Get your first customers through uncomfortable direct outreach. And finally, build your marketing on top of that proven ground. Literally everything outside of these 5 points is just a distraction meant to sell you something you don't need. We've stripped away the hype, the fake motivation, and all the guru nonsense. You have the blueprint now. The path is clear, and it's entirely up to you to walk it. So I'll leave you with the only question that truly matters right now. Can you sustain this long enough to find out?